Confessions of a Disgruntled Spy by Slobodan, Radojev, Mitric. Chapter 1. Enrollment in the Yugoslav Secret Service. It was springtime. Everything was teeming with life and clouds were flying overhead. I was stationed as a soldier at that time at Slavonska Požega. For the first 3 months, life was normal and easygoing. One day our whole detachment was ordered to line up in front of the army barracks and to empty our pockets and give away everything we had with us at that moment. We did not dare protest. Although everybody knew what this farce was about. We got all our personal belongings back, except our pen. Previously, every one of us had to sign their name with their own pen. After this weird search, the soldiers said that there were spies among us. They also said that Nazi symbols had been smeared in the toilets and on the walls of the barracks, and that anything was bound to happen. We didn't know what to expect. My friends and I were scared to death. We were very young. None of us was more than 20 years old. I was only 19. I had just started shaving myself for the first time that year. The fear of the spies caused wrinkles in my young face. I was more afraid of spies than death. It was only 2 days after the ceremony with the pens that they started searching and hearing us again. 3 of my friends, Zors, Bokan and Misa, had escaped from the army barracks. A general alarm was sounded and we all received our gear for a full-scale war. The soldiers were talking among themselves that my friends were spies underway to the Austrian border and that the Secret Service was pursuing them. Other news was circulating among us, for example, that there were mines planted and that the army barracks could any moment be blown up. That panic was stopped by the rough voice of our battalion commander, Major Jura. He ordered us in an angry and very loud voice to return to our barracks immediately, because the escaped soldiers had been caught. I knew those 3 men from the time that we were still in Belgrade. We played together as kids, so I couldn't understand why they were considered spies. Now I had formed a completely new image of spies. A spy could be just anybody. The next day, before lining up for military training, the corporal ordered me to report to Major Jura, the battalion commander, standing in position of him and sweating. I looked like a burning candle dripping with wax. Major Jura was accompanied by a high-ranking captain. They were talking about something as if I did not exist and paid absolutely no attention to me. I started trembling. For 10 minutes had already gone by since I entered their office. Then I stood still and said, "Zoran Jovanovic, soldier of the 3rd Battalion, 1st Detachment and 3rd Unit. At your service, Comrade Major." Since Major Jura did not say, "Dismissed," I kept standing in the position of the burning candle, eagerly waiting for the command. But the minutes turned into hours. Finally, the liaison captain looked at me and, faking surprise, shouted loudly as if I were a 100-year-old deaf man, "Comrade Zoran." Dismissed. After bellowing that, he smiled at me cordially, as if we were true-born brothers. The captain was almost 2 meters tall. His whole appearance was that of a true soldier. His voice and his face were strong as stone. I felt scared most of all when the slim captain shook hands with me. "I'm Captain Zarko. I sent for you, Zoran, to help me with a very important matter." I couldn't believe what I heard. Confused, I held his hand in mine while he looked deeply into my eyes and smiled at me. "I just telephoned your father. He sends you his kind regards. He said that he believes you will uphold the honor of your family." Listening to these words confused me even more. His whole behavior baffled me, especially when he said that he had called my father. Fear overwhelmed me. I felt something important was happening. I was afraid someone had told them that it was I who had drawn those swastikas. I almost started crying and begged him to believe me that I hadn't done it, when Zakar's voice interrupted my thoughts. "Comrade Zoran, please sit down." Zarko pointed to a beautifully designed sofa in the corner of the room, took out a cigarette case and handed it to me. Have a cigarette, Comrade Zorin? No thanks. I don't smoke, I muttered. I refused the cigarette and could hardly utter a word. Something was choking me and taking my breath away. Sweat was dripping from my face down my shivering chest. How nice that you don't smoke. I'd be happy if I could stop. And, do you drink alcohol? No, I said. I don't smoke or drink any alcohol. You're really a tough guy. He smiled at me and winked at Major Jura, who was blinking all the time and wiping the sweat of his forehead. I heard you train karate, said Captain Zarko, now with a new, more flattering and provocative tone of voice. Yes, that means you can break a brick with your bare hands. No, I answered a little more bravely. I was sorry that everyone considered a karate man to be some sort of brick breaker or bricklayer. Karate is as an art closely related to Zen philosophy. The aim of karate training is to use the stunted, potential energy in the human body. Only ignoramuses connect karate with brick breaking. So, you cannot break a brick. Then you are a bad karate man, said Captain Zarko, sneering cheerfully from a pleasure only known to him. The whole scene began to disgust me, and out of some kind of obstinacy caused by the captain's teasing, I insisted that I couldn't do it, although the truth was that I could break even 2 bricks. Breaking bricks is only one part of karate called tamashiveri. Can you break a tile then? Captain Zarko persisted in his interrogation. No, not even a tile, I replied in a tone of voice that sounded even strange to me. What sort karate belt do you have? The captain asked in a wicked tone of voice. A black belt, I said. Black. Come on. You mean to say you're a karate master? Yes, I said. But this previously nice captain had now become as boring and stupid as an ox to me, and so I said ironically, a real master and not a bricklayer. Yeah, never mind. I didn't call you because of karate, but to answer some questions. Major Jura got up from his chair and started walking up and down his office. He was always strict and spoke little, but the things he did say were always thoughtful. During the war he had been a battalion commander with the famous Dalmatian Brigade. He survived the war and was awarded many medals of honor. He was as tall as a Highlander and thin as a match. His eyes glittered like owl's eyes. You couldn't reach inside them to know what he was up to. The major suddenly opened the door and left, leaving Captain Zarko and myself alone. The captain cleared his throat and, after having offered me a cigarette again, which I refused again, started talking peacefully and with a certain kind of dignity. You, Zorin, come from a good family. I know your father personally, and when I see you I see him. Thus I expect you to be honest and answer all my questions without any fear that somebody will find out about it. You know what's been happening these days in your battalion. I believe there are many things that I don't know that you want to tell me about. That is why I called you. So that we can help each other like 2 honest and friendly human beings. First of all, tell me, how long have you known these 3 men, Zors? Bokan and Misa? I felt his piercing gaze and could hardly gather the strength to answer his question. I think about a year, maybe more. But I knew them as neighbors. We're now more like companions here. What were you talking about when you were last together? Were you planning to escape to Austria together? Who was making plans? I asked instead of answering. Although I knew full well that we had been making plans, but it was nothing more than youthful haughtiness. I thought that Zors was the first to mention something about escaping to Austria. But afterwards, we forgot all about that alleged escape plan. One thing was bothering me. Who was the person that had leaked everything to Captain Zarko? So you don't know anything about that? Inquired the captain. Of course I don't, I said convincingly. Okay, then I'll help you. Captain Zarko lit a cigarette, started pacing up and down the room and quietly started telling his story. I am very sorry, Zoran, that you've gotten into this mess. But I hope that when you've listened to me you will be honest and confess everything. You know very well what it means to prepare to escape out of the country. That is called desertion. A case for which a man can be court-martialed with little mercy. Of course, such an unpleasant thing can be avoided, but a man needs to be honest. I know you're young, but still. This is the army and that is no joke. Secondly, you messed things up before you enlisted in the army. You will have to appear in court because of those burglaries you committed last year. Imagine what the judge will think when we send him our recommendations. You'll no doubt be sentenced to prison for a long time. I talked to your father about all this. He's asking you not to embarrass him anymore. And, Zoran, you know full well that your father is a very honest man and that it's not right that, as an old man, he has to suffer because of you. I think you're not doing the right thing. But still, I promise to help you with everything. Just be honest. And then we will try to forget all about your burglaries. Now tell me, who drew those swastikas in your battalion? I don't know. You don't know, or are you afraid that those guys will beat you up afterwards? No, that's not it. I really don't know anything. Okay, Zoran, then we have nothing more to talk about. Go back to your unit, and if by any chance you change your mind, tell the soldier on duty that you want to see me. And now get out. March. The next day Major Jura sent me to prison for 7 days for having caused some kind of riot. I was put in the same prison cell with Zors, Bokan and Maiko. All three were tied in chains. Zors's head was bruised. He said that it was a leftover from a conversation with Captain Zarko. We got fed at noon. I couldn't eat. I was feeling sick and vomiting. At about 3 o'clock, the soldier on duty ordered me to go to Captain Zakar's office. When I entered his office, Captain Zarko was smiling. Okay then, Zoran. We have nothing to talk about. I didn't say a word and so the captain continued talking. Oljika is scheduled to come here at 5 o'clock. I think you're not going to be so stubborn as to force me to forbid you to see her. With only a little goodwill on your side, you can get permission to spend a whole 24 hours with her in town. When I heard him talking about Oljika, my heart froze. Oljika was my fiancée. I loved her very much and I hadn't seen her for 3 months. Suddenly Captain Zarko started to disgust me. Did he have to be so heartless and senseless? He knew very well that I loved Oljika and he chose her in order to make me talk. There were 2 forces struggling inside me, loyalty to a friend and love for my fiancée. The latter one. My character was too feeble to remain silent. I only succeeded in not revealing everything. I was looking for a way to gain more time. Okay, I said, let me go out with Oljika. And we'll talk about everything later. On your word of honor? Zarko asked me, smiling contentedly. You have my word, and when I give my word, I intend to keep it. Okay. You have permission for a 24-hour leave. *****.